What's up you guys, it's Sarah and welcome back to my channel. So about a year ago, on September 29th, 2020, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And this diagnosis followed months of muscle weakness, shortness of breath, being really thirsty, having to go to the washroom a lot, and basically all the typical symptoms that you see with type 1. Except at the time, I basically just ignored them and just kind of wrote them off as, just being tired or me over-exercising or working too much. But there was definitely a deeper problem that I never really tried to deal with. That is until the day before I was diagnosed, when I thought I was having a heart attack because my chest hurt so much because I couldn't breathe properly, and I was so weak that I could barely stand up from sitting down in a chair, which is when I finally decided that I should probably go to the hospital. And then that's when I was diagnosed with type 1. It's just hard to believe that a year ago I was using a sliding scale, which really did not work for me at all, and I had no idea what pre-bolusing was. And now, even though I'm definitely not an expert, I've learned a lot more thanks to Instagram and YouTube and other diabetes resources I found online. And that's why I want to make this video today, to just kind of reflect on and share some things that have helped me out in the past year. But just a little disclaimer, I guess. These are all things that have worked for me personally, and diabetes is a very personal thing because everyone's diabetes is so different. Yeah, just take the things I'm saying in this video with a grain of salt, I guess, because they may or may not work for you. I'm also not a medical professional in any way, shape, or form, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Oh yeah, one more thing before I start. I got this Diabetic Diabetes Award for authenticity for my 3-month diabetes update video. So thank you guys for that. It's really nice. Yeah, with that being said, let's get into the video. So let's start off with A1C levels. When I was first diagnosed, I had an A1C of 15.1, and then I went to 7.9, then 6.3, and my last one was 5.4, and that one I checked in May or June of this year. I haven't really checked my A1C level for a while, just because, to be honest, I don't really care that much about it. At the beginning, I feel like it was kind of a nice way for me to see how I was doing, and see the numbers slowly start to go down. But when I got 5.4 last time, it made me think about the fact that lower is not necessarily better, and I didn't want to almost compete with myself and see how much lower I could go, because I knew that if I got a higher A1C level, I would feel worse, even though anything below 7 is fine. But for me, I just felt like I would start, just competing with myself and seeing if I could get a lower number. I don't know, just because I had like a downward trend, I guess. I want to continue with that, even though there's only so much further I could go down before my average blood sugar level was like 3 or something, which is not good either. And your A1C level doesn't really tell you that much other than your average blood sugar level. Like, it doesn't say anything about how often you're in range, so you could have a ton of lows and a ton of really high highs, but they'll just average out and you have a good A1C, but your time in range is horrible. Yeah, that's why I've kind of given up, I guess, on checking my A1C. Although I probably will have to go at some point, because if I want to go and pump, I think I'm gonna have to check my A1C levels. As for my insulin, I use Tresiba for my long-acting insulin and Humalog for my short-acting insulin, and I love them. I love this combination. It's definitely worked the best for me so far. I've tried Tresiba and Fiasp and Lantus and Humalog and Lantus, and I think this is just the best one for me. I finally reached a 50-50 ratio between long and fast-acting insulin, which is kind of the goal. My ratio for a while is probably like 20-80, so I was barely using any long-acting insulin. But now I've gotten to a point where it's about equal, and I'm really happy with that. I feel like it also means that I've kind of exited the honeymoon phase, which is also good because I honestly really didn't like being in the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase, for me at least, meant that my blood sugar levels at night were really stable, but that meant that I couldn't give myself more long-acting insulin during the day, because then I would go really low at night, and it was just super annoying. So I'm glad that I've kind of gotten out of that phase of diabetes. I also use a dexcom now, which you can't see, but it's right here on my arm, and I also have really been liking the dexcom. For a while I had issues with it sticking to my skin. I probably had like 3 or 4 sensors just fall off. But I got this thing called Skin Tack, and it has been so helpful now. None of my sensors have had any problems falling off. I think the accuracy is also quite a bit better than the Freestyle Libre. I also really enjoy the fact that it's completely wireless, so I don't have to always touch my phone to my sensor. And I like the alarm system too, although I don't really need it that much. I mostly only really pay attention for it if I'm going low, but I feel like I check my Dexcom so much anyway that it doesn't really matter for me. I pretty much want to go and pump since I was diagnosed, especially at the beginning when my day and night basal amounts were completely different. Now they're kind of equal, so I guess it doesn't matter as much. But yeah, I've been wanting to go on pump for a while, but I'm still not on it. Unfortunately, with COVID, a lot of things have just kind of not happened, I guess. I go to a university in a different province from where I live in. So when I was diagnosed, I had like a whole diabetes team there and everything was set up. And I was pretty close to actually going on pump because I'd taken the pump classes and I did like everything else you have to do to prepare for that. But then yeah, COVID happened, so I had to move back home. And since I live in a different province, I need to find a new team because my team there can't prescribe anything to me. So my family doctor referred me to an endocrinologist, but I still haven't gotten in with them. I asked him for a referral in July or August, and it's now November, and I still haven't heard anything from them. So I don't know when I'm gonna go on pump, to be honest. If COVID didn't happen and I was still back at school, I probably would be on pump right now because I was pretty much there, like I pretty much had everything done. So it's kind of annoying that I can't go on it because literally everything's set up. My dad called the Omnipod company and we've gotten everything set up with them, everything set up with insurance and with my team back at school. But just the fact that I'm living here means that I can't really do anything. So that's kind of unfortunate, but oh well, what can you do? So that kind of leads me into my next point of why I want to go on pump so bad, and that's absorption on my skin. I would say the biggest ongoing issue that I've had with diabetes is insulin absorption when I inject with my pen needles. When I first got diagnosed, I only injected into my stomach and I just kind of rotated around there for the first maybe like 5 months or so. And then I reached a point where the insulin just wouldn't really work in my stomach anymore. Like I would inject myself, but I'd need like a lot more, like 1.5 times the amount for it to work. Then I realized I was probably starting to develop some lumps and stuff under my skin, so I started rotating around my body. I moved on to my legs and my arms, but those places stopped working after a lot less time. Like I injected, I think, into my legs for 2 or so months, same with my arms. But now both those places, like, I just can't really inject in there at all. So I moved back down to my stomach, which is kind of healed a bit. I try and do my back as well, but there's only so many places on my body that I can reach with this pen and like properly like push the plunger in and not like, you know, put it in an angle. I'm kind of running out of space to inject on my body. It's really annoying because some places I'll inject and the insulin will work fine, everything absorbs, it's all good. And some places I'll inject and it just won't work. Like it's like I didn't inject any insulin. I don't really know why I'm having this issue after only a year with diabetes. And I was talking to one of my nurses about it and she was also a bit surprised, I guess, that I'm already dealing with this. I don't know, maybe it's because I feel like my skin is very tough, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't really know, honestly. And I know that pump isn't a perfect solution to this, but I think it would be really helpful if I could put a pump on, first of all, different parts of my body that I can't reach with my pen needle. Like my whole back, I barely inject there. And I wouldn't have to inject every time. I could just put the pump on and have it be in that one spot for 3 days and then rotate it around. Since I don't know how long it'll be till I can go on pump, for now I guess I'll just have to keep dealing with this. My nurses recommended maybe getting longer needles, so I might try that, but I think pump might be the best solution for me. But yeah, again, we don't know what's happening with that. So now I just want to talk a bit about some things I've learned this year. I think one of the biggest things I've learned is that diabetes is not my entire life. It does impact every part of my life, and it's definitely something I think about quite often. But living like my life revolved around diabetes was not good at all for me. When I first got diagnosed, I wanted to be in range all the time. I wanted to make sure my graphs all had relatively straight lines. I wanted to make sure I always gave myself the right amount of insulin and I didn't go super high. So I would go on walks all the time to try and bring myself down because there was a point where I was kind of scared to give myself corrections, but I've kind of gotten over that now. I also didn't really eat snacks with carbs in it. If I was hungry in between meals, I would just snack on nuts or something else that doesn't really have carbs. And sometimes I would eat foods that I didn't really want to eat just because they didn't have as much carbs in them. And I did all that just so I could maybe have a lower A1C level or have a better time in range. But I went through a little period, kind of when quarantine first started, when I was staying home, wasn't exercising or anything like that, where I needed a lot of insulin and I had to give myself a lot of corrections. I wasn't really able to do as much exercise to help my blood sugar levels stay down. I kind of realized that I needed to let things go, otherwise I would just be stressed all the time, because during that time my blood sugar levels were always running like a little bit high. And yeah, I guess I realized that I couldn't always control my blood sugar levels and sometimes they would just be high for no reason. And sometimes there's more important things going on in life than making sure that my blood sugar is between 4 and 9. And in saying this, I don't mean that I don't care at all about diabetes and I just don't care about having a good A1C or anything like that. I just mean that trying to be perfect and trying to have the A1C of someone who doesn't have diabetes isn't really attainable or sustainable, I guess, for me. And if I force myself to try and be the perfect diabetic, I'm probably just going to be extremely unhappy, and it's probably just going to lead to burnout, and it'll just be worse in the long run. I think the best way for me to manage diabetes is to be a bit more lenient and not stress out if I've been a little bit high or if I need a little bit more insulin on a certain day for some reason, and to just not care as much. And it's okay for me to set diabetes aside for a little bit. I'm kind of hesitant to say those things because I don't want someone to interpret that as me saying that you shouldn't really care that much about diabetes and that's not that big of a deal. Because it is important, obviously, to take care of your health and to manage your diabetes, because it's a chronic illness and it's going to be with you for the rest of your life, because, you know, who knows if there's ever going to be a cure. And there's a lot of complications that can happen if you don't manage it very well. I guess I'm speaking to the people who are being extra hard on themselves and are wanting to get from an A1C of 6 to 4.5, even though it's not really that much better, because it can get dangerous when you get to A1C levels that low and you're just constantly hovering around 4 and you're not really living your life. Another thing I've learned is that it's okay to give myself insulin corrections. When I was first diagnosed, I would basically just go on walks every time I started to go high, and I would only give myself insulin as a very last resort. And a part of that was because when I gave myself insulin, I would pretty much always shoot back down because I was just kind of weirdly sensitive to it. And I think a part of my fear giving myself corrections tied into the fact that I was just kind of scared of insulin in general. Like, I didn't really want to give myself more because I guess there's like a stigma with giving yourself more insulin. But I was talking to my nurse and she was saying that if you didn't give yourself insulin, your body would produce it anyway. And units are kind of just an arbitrary number we've given to certain amounts of insulin. So it's not a super big deal if you give yourself a certain amount more. Like, obviously that only goes to a certain extent, because I don't know, if you're giving yourself like 100 units of insulin, then maybe there's some problems with other stuff like insulin absorption, maybe the food you're eating, whatever. But I guess in my situation, giving myself that extra little bit of insulin isn't really that big of a deal, and it's a lot better than just making myself go on walks or exercising every time I went high, because it got really tiring when I was basically walking all the time. Yeah, I guess it kind of brings me to the end of what I want to talk about today. I'm gonna just kind of update you guys on how the past year has been. It's definitely been a wild ride, very unexpected. Never thought this was gonna happen to me. But you know, here I am. But yeah, I just want to update you guys, I guess, on kind of what's been going on for the past year, how diabetes has been for me. I also made some other update videos, so I want to kind of follow up on those for my fun 1-year anniversary. Let me know any diabetes related, or I guess any videos you want me to make down below, because I'm kind of running out of ideas and I don't really know what I want to film. So if you have any ideas, yeah, just leave a comment. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.